This isn't a new release, it's practically fossilized by gaming standards. But like a well-seasoned pan, it gets better the longer it sticks around. The roguelike scene has ballooned into a self-serious parade of procedural dungeons and pixel art nostalgia bombs, but Slay the Spire sits there like a cool older cousin, smoking in the corner and letting you decide whether you're brave enough to ruin your sleep schedule. Spoiler, you are. Welcome to Queue for Review, where we queue it, play it, and throw our entire social life into a deck of cards like it's Vegas, but without the free drinks. Let's get into it. Slay the Spire doesn't seduce you with graphics or a plot or even the promise of reward. It seduces you with pain. Not Dark Souls pain, not learn the timing of a boss and eventually triumph pain. No. This is the pain of your own hubris wrapped in cardstock. You think you're clever. You think you've got the deck figured out. And then the game calmly slaps you across the face with a fight you should have seen coming but didn't. Because you got greedy. Because you picked the wrong relic. Because you thought you were special. That's the loop. Start weak, scrape for survival, stitch together a Frankenstein deck that might work, and then watch it either snowball into godhood or collapse into rubble. It's endlessly cruel and endlessly satisfying. And that's where the addiction kicks in. You can't stop because the next run might be the one. The next run might click. The next run will surely prove you're not an idiot who just lost to a slime. The Spire itself is barely a character. It's not a lovingly crafted open world, not some lore-drenched epic begging you to care. It's a tower, a slime, rooms, enemies, relics, bosses. No cinematic nonsense, no exposition dumps. Just pure mechanics dressed in strange, surreal vibes. It doesn't try too hard. It lets the fights and the relics and your own bad decisions tell the story. And with all that minimalism, everyone ends up with personal grudges. A nemesis, the gremlin knob, or those birds, or the spazzy book of stabbing. That's where the genius lies. The game doesn't need a script. It writes your story with pain, triumph, and spite. Slay the Spire is less about climbing a tower and more about dragging yourself through therapy with a deck of cards as your only weapon. It's the closest thing to gambling addiction most of us will legally indulge in. Except here, when you lose, you don't lose rent money. You just lose pride, which actually hurts more. Mechanically, this is one of the tightest roguelikes ever made. Every card matters. Every choice is a trap disguised as opportunity. Did you add that shiny new card? Sure, but now your deck is bloated and slow. Did you grab the relic that gives you free energy every turn? Cool, but it also curses your draws with garbage. Nothing is free, nothing is safe. It's a game that makes you bargain with yourself constantly, and that's the thrill. Because when you finally get the deck to sing, when the silence stacks poison so high that bosses keel over before they even get a chance to flex, it feels divine. That's the dopamine spike. That's the perfect run. But RNGesus in Slay the Spire isn't just randomness. It's a malevolent roommate. Sometimes it hands you relics and cards that feel like destiny. Other times it cackles while you draw nothing but defense in a do or die fight. It's the friend that convinces you to take one more shot, then abandons you when the cops show up. What keeps it from tipping into unfair is that you always had a choice. You could have taken the safer relic, skipped the curse card, kept the deck clean. You didn't. You gambled, and the game made you pay. That balance between control and chaos is what keeps you glued to it. I do wish there were a few more characters. 4 feels like a little stingy for a game this endlessly replayable. They are deep, for sure. Each one has layers, multiple playstyles, enough to keep you busy for ages. But after 100 runs, you start dreaming about what else could exist. Something wild and broken. It's less a flaw than a hunger, which is a good problem for a game to have. But the truth here is, the design in this game is master class. It's super addictive. It's cruel in just the right ways. And it's built so precisely that you just can't stop blaming yourself for losses. That's not just smart, that's evil genius. Alright, this game is not a looker. At its best, the art style is quirky and functional. At its worst, it looks like something your cousin doodled on graph paper during detention. Animations are minimal, enemies don't exactly move with menace, and the background's static. It's fine, but no one is framing screenshots from this thing. But then there's the music. The soundtrack is the unsung hero of Slay the Spire. It's not bombastic, not demanding attention. It sits under your runs like a steady pulse, keeping you locked in. Never distracting, never irritating. It's chill, almost meditative, which is wild considering you're usually one turn away from getting obliterated. The sound design matches too. Attacks land with enough weight to feel satisfying. Effects have clarity without excess. This is a game built for the long haul. and the audio proves it. You can grind for hours and not feel fatigued. It's smart, invisible design. The kind of stuff most people don't notice until they play a game that gets it wrong. So yeah, it may look like a cheap Flash game, but it sounds like a cult classic. And that combination works. Because when the mechanics are this good, you stop caring about polish. All you care about is the next card draw. You care about whether your poison stacks will tick just enough to finish the boss. The art could be drawn in crayon and it would not matter. Slay the Spire doesn't care about wowing you with presentation. It cares about eating your time, and in that regard, it's flawless. Slay the Spire didn't invent roguelikes, and it didn't invent deck builders, but it smashed them together in a way that defined the genre. Before this, deck games were mostly trying to copy Hearthstone or cling to tabletop nostalgia. Roguelikes were still obsessed with being punishing and retro. Slay the Spire cut through both. Now, every other indie on Steam wants to be a roguelike deck builder, and most of them suck because they confuse random with interesting. Slay the Spire understood that randomness needs to be a tool, not a crutch. It built a system where RNG pushes you into creativity instead of just screwing you over. That's why it works. That's why it lasts. This is one of those rare games that becomes a vocabulary word, like how you describe a Souls-like, or a Metroidvania, or a roguelike. Slay the Spire became shorthand. You don't explain it, you just say, it's like Slay the Spire. Innovation isn't always about flashy features, sometimes it's about restraint. Slay the Spire never tried to be 10 things. It tried to be one thing perfectly, and it nailed it. That's why people are still playing it years later. That's why we're waiting for the sequel like it's a parole hearing. So here's the truth. This game won't be for everyone. If you hate failure, hate randomness, hate repetition, you're going to bounce off of it. But if you've ever felt the sick satisfaction of outsmarting a system, of bending probability to your will, of seeing a plan come together in a way that feels inevitable and yet somehow shocking, then this is for you. Roguelikes will always have a place on my screen, but few survive the purge of backlog guilt. This one does, because it doesn't waste time. Runs are snappy, choices matter, and every defeat feels like a challenge instead of a waste. The backlog is a graveyard of half-finished games. Slay the Spire earns its spot among the survivors. Everyone who plays ends up with a nemesis. That personal vendetta is part of the design. The Spire doesn't just test your strategy, it tests your patience, your stubbornness, your ability to laugh while getting punched in the teeth. Slay the Spire gets an 88. Slay the Spire is a cult classic, not because it's perfect, but because it's sticky. It lingers. It crawls into your brain and lives there, whispering at 2 a.m., one more. That whisper is louder than any marketing campaign. It's why the game still matters. And when the sequel finally drops, the expectations are going to be monstrous. Because this isn't just a game anymore. It's a genre capstone. It's punishment wrapped in satisfaction, endlessly looping until you either quit or ascend. Alright, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Check out my website for the written review, linked on my channel. Subscribe to join the Backlog Cult. Also, drop your cursed deck stories below, or just roast me. I'll see you in the next one. Cue it, play it, slay it. Peace.